They thought they were just doing their job, enforcing neighborhood rules, upholding the look and feel of Ridgepoint Estates. But when the HOA cut my power, they didn't just inconvenience a resident. They didn't just shut down a house. They flipped the wrong switch, the one that kept a federal operations center hidden in my basement alive. That morning, the moment my lights died, they unknowingly compromised a classified network node tied to ongoing counterintelligence efforts spanning half the globe. The most ironic part? I chose this neighborhood for its boring perfection. Manicured, lawns, silent cul-de-sacs, and neighbors who obsessed over recycling bins and shrub height. The sort of place where people named their labradoodles after wine varietals and took pride in perfect Halloween decorations. It was invisible, and that's exactly what I needed. My house was just like the others on the block, except it wasn't. On paper, I was a Department of Energy consultant. In reality, I was part of a covert cyber intelligence unit under a joint defense umbrella, maintaining what we called a black node, an off-the-grid data center quietly collecting and relaying signals from international surveillance satellites and compromised servers across Europe and Asia. Most of the tech was underground, beneath what appeared to be a wine cellar accessed by a biometric lock behind a rack of Pinot Noir bottles. The walls were soundproof. The door was reinforced steel, disguised behind faux wood paneling. Even the electricity powering the ops center ran through a separate fortified circuit buried beneath my property. I wasn't in it for the glory. I'd been in this game long enough to know that no one thanked the shadows. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good to be part of something big, something that actually mattered. Most days, I monitored encrypted pings, kept eyes on threat maps, and ran maintenance on encrypted servers. Other times, I was routing real-time drone intel to military command or triggering ghost protocols that wiped entire terabytes of sensitive data from compromised networks. Everything was quiet, contained, and under the radar, until it wasn't. It started, as these things usually do, with a letter, printed in all caps, tucked neatly into my mailbox. Notice of non-compliance. According to the HOA, my house violated several community aesthetic guidelines. The paint was faded, they said. The satellite dish on my roof was oversized and unsightly. They also mentioned some unapproved wiring they'd spotted leading into the ground. That was the first red flag. Who notices wiring from street? Level? I ignored it. Not out of arrogance, but necessity. We were knee-deep in an escalating cyber campaign out of Belarus, and my node was pushing bandwidth limits just keeping up. I figured I'd deal with the HOA later. Maybe repaint, maybe fake a smaller dish and mask the real one. Either way, it could wait. The second letter came 2 weeks later. This one was more aggressive. Failure to respond will result in enforcement action. Still, I didn't move fast enough. I was in DC for a briefing on infrastructure vulnerabilities when the final straw snapped. Tuesday morning, 6:15 a.m., I landed back in town and headed straight home. The sun hadn't fully risen yet. The neighborhood was still wrapped in fog. I noticed something off as soon as I pulled into my driveway. My garage wouldn't open. I figured it was a remote issue. I walked around to the side entrance and unlocked it manually. Inside, silence. Too much silence. No hum from the refrigerator. No soft buzz of the HVAC system. I flicked a switch. Nothing. My phone vibrated. Home security alert. System offline. I stared at the notification, suddenly cold. I sprinted to the basement. My heart was thudding. Down the main stairs, through the fake wine cellar, hand flat on the biometric scanner. Denied. Backup battery dead. I yanked open the manual access panel and overrode the lock. Inside, pitch black. All systems were down. My redundant power systems had been drained. Someone had not only cut the primary connection, but also tripped the fallback. Then I saw the envelope. It was taped to my front door in the same crisp font. Due to continued non-compliance, Ridgepoint Estates HOA has exercised its right to disconnect utility service until such time as the homeowner addresses the violations cited. No signature, no contact name. Just an assumption that they'd handled the problem. They had no idea. The basement's shutdown protocol had done its job. It scrambled network traces and locked sensitive files behind a burn wall, but it also sent a silent ping to HQ. One that signaled an anomaly with potential national security risk. I was already in my office when my secure phone rang. "Agent Mason, report." It was Director Cole, and he did not sound pleased. "They cut the power," I said quickly. "The HOA. They thought they were dealing with a paint violation." Silence. Then, was the node compromised? "Offline, but the kill switch was clean. I'm initiating restart now, but we may have exposed a data gap," he swore. "Stay put. We're sending a response team." And just like that, the quiet little neighborhood of Ridgepoint Estates was about to get a very loud wake-up call. The silence after I hung up the secure line was thicker than ever. I sat in my office chair, listening to nothing. The fridge still dead, the hum of the servers still absent. It was unsettling, like the house had gone hollow. The HOA had no idea what they'd done. Their quest to maintain uniform curb appeal had just disrupted one of the most sensitive federal cyber nodes in the continental United States. I moved fast. The ops center had entered blackout mode, meaning everything was locked and encrypted, but that didn't mean we were safe. If anyone had been watching, if an adversary noticed the sudden drop in signal from our node, it could have triggered action. These systems monitored more than just suspicious data packets. They watched for patterns in silence, too. A cold node meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant attention. I bypassed the dead systems and yanked open a panel in the wall near the stairs. A set of manual switches was concealed inside, each with an old-school physical key slot. I always carried one of the keys on a chain around my neck. With a satisfying click, I unlocked the emergency uplink system, a compact satellite dish. On my roof, part of a backup chain that ran on an isolated solar array. It wasn't powerful enough to bring the full system back online, but it could re-establish a link with Langley. As soon as I activated the uplink, the secure comms line buzzed again. This time, it wasn't just Director Cole. A full crisis team had been mobilized. The center was operating under Condition Amber, meaning we were dealing with a potential breach or active foreign surveillance. 10 minutes later, I heard it. Tires screeching in perfect coordination, engines rumbling in sync. I stepped outside just in time to see 3 black SUVs glide into the cul-de-sac. Behind them came 2 matte gray vans with no plates, windows tinted blacker than obsidian. The neighbors were already peeking out of their curtains, some stepping onto porches in robes and coffee mugs in hand, faces frozen in confusion. The SUVs stopped with military precision in front of my driveway. The lead vehicle's door opened, and out stepped Director Cole himself, flanked by 2 agents. All wore civilian clothes, but carried the unmistakable energy of people used to kicking down doors and dealing with chaos. "Status?" he asked me the eye. Second he reached the porch. Nodes dark. Full blackout. Emergency uplink active. Local systems offline. Generator was deliberately bypassed. He nodded, face tight. He didn't need to ask how. We both knew. Get me inside. We moved quickly. Agents fanned out to secure the perimeter. One headed straight for the transformer unit buried behind the side hedges. He'd confirmed the disconnect was HOA initiated. Another climbed the roof to assess the dish. The basement was already filling with personnel. Laptops were unpacked. Mobile terminals deployed. Red and green lights blinked as agents rerouted power from the solar array to critical systems. Then, we saw the damage. During the shutdown, the passive monitoring systems had caught a disturbance, a ping originating from a server farm in Moldova, known to be operated by a non-state group with Russian backing. They'd noticed the silence and sent a probe signal, likely to confirm if the node was truly down. That single signal meant our cover had slipped. Not blown entirely, but enough to set alarms ringing. Cole barked orders. We need a digital sweep, full spectrum. Look for any foreign IPs that so much as sniffed our link during the blackout window. I want latency maps. I want timestamps. He turned to me. You were minutes away from losing containment. This node was handling active intercepts. 1 hour of dead air, and we'd be explaining to a Senate committee how we let it happen because some HOA jackass thought your paint was too faded. I didn't argue. I felt it too. That tight feeling in your chest when a situation inches toward catastrophe and you're powerless to stop it. Outside, the neighborhood was buzzing with whispers. Word was spreading. FBI, someone muttered. Another guessed CIA. The more imaginative neighbors speculated about drug rings or witness protection. One man, the vice president of the HOA, walked over to the lawn where one of the agents was checking underground cabling. He tried to play it casual. Excuse. Me, is everything all right here? He asked, adjusting his glasses. The agent didn't look up. Please return to your property, sir. But The agent turned toward him, subtly shifting his jacket to reveal the federal credentials clipped to his belt. Now! The man practically sprinted back inside. Meanwhile, inside the house, the team worked to restore the node. Backup systems booted up. Redundant encryption keys were rotated. The command server flickered, then surged to life. Monitors glowed with familiar data streams. The hum returned, soft, steady, vital. By the time the sun rose fully, the node was operational. But the breach window had been real. Our European partners had picked up on the momentary gap too, and one high-priority data stream had been rerouted. Through a less secure channel. We patched it. We recovered. But for those few minutes, the entire mission balance had shifted. Cole finally sat down at my kitchen table, rubbing his eyes. All this because someone didn't like the look of a satellite dish, I nodded. They thought it was an eyesore. He chuckled, but it wasn't humor. It was the kind of laugh you let out when you realize how close things came to unraveling. He stood up and faced the window, looking out across Ridgepoint Estates. Neat lawns, sprinklers clicking in sync, neighbors pretending not to be watching. The black SUVs and vans. We'll have a word with the board, he said. Quietly. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again. I didn't ask how. I knew better. When federal agencies had a word, it usually involved sealed rooms, legal briefings and binding NDAs. If necessary, they'd buy out the entire HOA board and replace them with shadows. I also didn't ask what would happen if someone leaked anything. No one would. Not after this. As Cole left, he clapped me on the shoulder. Get some sleep, Mason. We dodged one, barely, and with that the SUVs pulled out, tires silent on the pavement. The vans followed. By the time the last vehicle turned the corner, Ridgepoint Estates was quiet again, but the neighborhood would never look the same. The morning after the blackout, Ridgepoint Estates didn't wake up so much as it emerged cautiously from behind curtains. There was no birdsong, no idle chatter from joggers or dog walkers, just silence and the soft creak of blinds being pried open by trembling fingers. The night before had changed everything. The arrival of black SUVs, the agents in tactical gear, the unfamiliar tension in the air. It shattered the illusion of suburban peace. People didn't know what had happened, but they knew it was something big. And they knew it started at my house. I stood at my front window, sipping reheated coffee, watching the neighborhood pretend nothing had happened. The same people who once complained about my unpainted eaves now offered quick, nervous waves if our eyes met. Some didn't look at me at all, and while the calm had returned to Ridgepoint streets, it felt performative, as if everyone were acting out a version of their old routines to keep reality from sinking in. The HOA board met that same afternoon. Quietly. No flyers, no community emails, just a hastily arranged session in the clubhouse, door locked, curtains drawn. I wasn't invited, of course, but I knew enough to find out what was said. One of the junior board members, a young guy named Jared, who'd always been too timid to speak up, reached out that evening. He didn't know the full story, but he'd seen enough to understand one thing. The HOA had crossed a line they didn't even know existed. "Whatever your job is," he said, his voice low over the phone, "it's way above our pay grade. I didn't confirm anything. I didn't need to." The board was already unraveling. By the next morning, Cynthia Mallory, the HOA president, the one who had signed off on cutting my power, was gone. Her house was dark. Her car was gone. A for sale sign was jammed into her front lawn by noon, and nobody had seen her leave. Rumor had it that she'd received a visit from someone wearing a suit and no badge, who handed her an envelope and said nothing else. Her resignation email was terse and emotionless. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down from all duties. No explanation, no apologies, just her name and a single sentence. The fallout rippled fast. 2 other board members followed suit before the week ended. Others who remained restructured the board entirely, bringing in outside legal counsel to review the charter for compliance with local and federal standards. It was a bureaucratic way of saying, let's make sure we never mess with another power line ever again. In the following weeks, the neighborhood dynamic shifted. Not overtly, not all at once, but noticeably. No one asked about my satellite dish anymore. No one filed petty complaints. In fact, the HOA suddenly adopted a new tone: cooperative, friendly, deferential. They even sent someone to repaint the exterior of my house, free of charge, citing a community improvement initiative. My power was restored with a new priority-grade transformer, monitored and double-insulated. It didn't stop there. Other residents noticed the change, too. The new board launched a Neighborhood Resilience Task Force, which sounded noble, but had one unspoken rule: leave the Mason house alone. The bylaws were amended with a new clause buried in legalese, effectively preventing the board from altering utilities without a comprehensive investigation, legal oversight, and resident consent. People speculated, of course. Human nature wouldn't allow them to let it go. Some believed I was in the witness protection program and that the blackout was a failed assassination attempt. Others thought I was an underground tech mogul running some secret startup. A few suggested I was military intelligence, and the HOA had triggered a national security emergency. No one got close to the truth, but they all understood one thing: I wasn't just another neighbor. Despite the tension, I kept things low-key. I trimmed my hedges. I waved back when waved at. I hosted a barbecue 2 weekends later and grilled ribs while discussing lawn fertilizers and the upcoming school board election. It was my version of damage control, letting them see a normal man with a normal life, even if everyone knew it wasn't entirely true. But I did notice a new respect, one that bordered on fear. When I spoke, people listened. When I asked questions at community meetings, no one interrupted. When the HOA proposed raising annual dues, my simple, "Are you sure that's wise?" was enough to send the proposal back for revision. I'd become a myth in my own neighborhood. Occasionally, I'd see a new family move in. Fresh smiles, firm handshakes, unaware of what had happened before their arrival. One man during a block party gestured to my roof and asked, "What's with that dish? It's huge." Before I could answer, an older neighbor, Mr. Halpern from 2 doors down, cut in with a too-quick laugh. "Ah, that? Just let it be. We don't ask about dishes around here." The man blinked, confused. I smiled and offered him a beer. Life went on, quietly, steadily. I maintained the node, monitored the feeds, and filed my reports. We upgraded the encryption, rotated the protocols. The blackout incident became a case study within the agency, a lesson in the danger of underestimating civilian interference. They'd even started reinforcing nodes in similar setups across the country with automatic alert systems tied directly to utility grids. A new failsafe born from Ridgepoint's mistake. As for me, I found peace in the rhythm again. Mornings on the porch, evenings monitoring satellite feeds, the occasional trip to Langley. I didn't hold a grudge against the HOA, not anymore. They didn't know. They couldn't have known. That's the whole point of hiding something in plain sight. But the neighborhood never fully forgot. It hovered behind every awkward smile, every wide-eyed glance at my house. Even the kids whispered stories. The spy who mowed the lawn, one called me. I let them believe what they wanted. It was better that way. And every now and then, when the sun dips just right and the cul-de-sac falls into that golden hush, I stand outside and look around. Perfect homes. Perfect hedges. Perfect silence. They thought they were in control. Now they know better.